Terence. We are still continuing with this Sammaditthi Sutta. So this version is translated by Ajahn Thanisaro. So Susan was asking earlier which translator. So the book, the version that's printed by TBCM, it's under this, or translated by Ajahn Sujato, very different. Okay, so anyway, we'll continue. We are about to finish, so if you have any suggestions for future topics, please do so. You can ask or suggest during the Q&A session. Alright, so let's continue. So for those who are new, we are talking about this dependent origination. There are 12 links. So this sutta talks about 2 links at a time using the Four Noble Truth format. So it starts off instead from the top. Usually most of the explanation of dependent origination starts from ignorance, whereas in this particular sutta, or in some suttas, they start from the bottom. So in this case, Venerable Sariputta starts from aging and death. So we already covered most of it, from aging and death all the way from bottom to top. So now we are close to finishing. So now we are at consciousness, which is the 3rd link from the top. So you get to understand what I mean by the Four Noble Truth format. All the links are the same. You just need to use one out of the 12. You don't need to know all 12. You don't have to memorize the 12 in sequence. You just need to know 2, the one side by side to each other, the link that's next to each other, and then that will be sufficient. Okay, so I'll just continue with this consciousness. Saying, good friend, having delighted in and approved of Venerable Sariputta's words, the monks asked him a further question. Would there be another line of reasoning by which a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view, who has arrived at this true Dhamma? Right, so this audience, the monks that travel very far all the way to see Venerable Sariputta, they are not satisfied with after many different explanations. Actually, one is good enough. If you practice one, it will bring you all the way to enlightenment, like what Venerable Sariputta mentioned in all the previous examples, but they still want to carry on. So let's continue with this consciousness link. Next. There would, when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns consciousness, the origination of consciousness, the cessation of consciousness, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of consciousness, then he is a person of right view, who has arrived at this true Dhamma. Alright, so this is the Four Noble Truth format. So the first Noble Truth discerns consciousness. That means you need to first understand what is consciousness. You need to understand, discern. That means you are able to identify what is consciousness. Then the next one, second Noble Truth, the origination of consciousness. So that's the second Noble Truth format. How does consciousness arise? Then the third Noble Truth, the cessation of consciousness. And the fourth Noble Truth would be the way of practice leading to the cessation of consciousness, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so the next paragraph, they'll kind of try to question and define those Four Noble Truths further. And previous slide. And what is consciousness? What is the origination of consciousness? What is the cessation of consciousness? What is the way of practice leading to the cessation of consciousness? Okay, next. Okay, so this is the first one. Now, what is consciousness? There are 6 classes of consciousness. I consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, intellect consciousness. This is called consciousness. So the Sutta definition of consciousness is your six sense based cognitive functions. That means when you are living here and now, you have to experience this. So the by using this definition, the 12 links of dependent origination, let's go back to the previous few slides to the 12 links. Okay, so if you look at this model, the right column, if consciousness is the 12 or the 12 links of dependent origination, if the consciousness is defined as a six sense based consciousness, then this 12 links would be a moment to moment living experience, day to day living experience. However, most of the institutions define consciousness as rebirth linking consciousness. So they change the definition, so changing the whole 12 links of dependent origination becomes 3 lifetime. So like ignorance and fabrication, or we call it karmic formations, would be like, oh, after a person dies, then the so-called consciousness or this mental energy need to go to a new body, right? So this karmic formation will push this consciousness or this rebirth linking consciousness to a new body, which is name and form, right? So the name is the mind, the form is the body or the fetus of the womb, right? So that is the mainstream educational explanation of this rebirth linking consciousness, which is not from the suttas, which is not from the original teachings. So the rebirth linking consciousness is a commentary from another sutta, from the Maha Sutta. So the Buddha was giving another analogy or another example of something coming to a womb. So the Buddha described it as consciousness, a different type of consciousness, not the six sense based consciousness. So it's a different context. So rebirth is a process, another process. Dependent origination is a different process also. So dependent origination is more on understanding how attachment works, and the reverse order is to understand how detachment works. So it happens like moment to moment, here and now. So I'll continue the so-called the 3 lifetime model. Then they will say, okay, if after the consciousness goes to the womb, which is name and form, then the fetus will develop the 6 senses. The baby will grow the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, have contact, have feelings, have developed craving, clinging, becoming, then birth. Right? So birth will be, giving labor, the mother giving labor to the baby, and the baby will sort of grow up, aging, and death. Right? So this, they call it a 3 lifetime model. So the aging and death will be like 1 lifetime, and the traveling of the so-called mental energy to the womb is the second phase, and into the next life, which is the womb, the third phase. So there are like 3 phases into this model. The mainstream education would kind of explain it this way. But if you're using the sutta's definition of the 6 sense based consciousness, then rebirth won't fit in, right? How can seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching cause birth? When you see something, somebody get pregnant. Yeah, you hear something, somebody get pregnant. Impossible, right? So it doesn't work that way, right? So what happens is, when you see something, is dependent on name and form. So like in the previous few lessons, these 12 links don't really go like chronological order in sequence. A lot of them are kind of related. Like name and form is actually the 5 aggregates, mind, matter, and 5 aggregates you have feeling. So feeling is all down there, and below this name and form is like, you have repetition. So a lot of these processes are intertwined. Right? So the consciousness, the normal formula will normally say dependent on your organ, dependent on your eye, dependent on the external object you see, like the screen you're seeing right now, then I consciousness arise. Right? So that's the formula for this consciousness. So it's dependent on mind and matter. You need the material, at least some kind of material form, the physical body. I mean, the eye is a kind of form, the screen you're seeing is a form, and the mental part would be your, this consciousness, your feelings and everything. So then you have the sixth sense media, which is whatever you see, hear, smell, think, taste and touch, and then followed by contact. That means whatever you see, that's a contact. Whatever you hear, that's a contact. You're zooming in your attention, and then when you zoom in that attention, then you'll have feelings, whether you find it pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and followed by craving. Then you develop this, whether you have greed or anger towards those feelings, and then you lead to addiction or clinging, attachment. And once you cling to that object or that story you create, then you become that character. I crave for, kway teow, for example. So I become a kway teow lover. So you become a certain character. Yeah. So if I say I crave for Christmas party, so then I become a Christmas party goer. So you become something based on your craving and clinging. Yeah, you become a certain personality. So the more traditional explanation will say that becoming, there's the sensual becoming, form and formless becoming. So I give a few sensual becoming examples. The form and formless becoming would be if a person enter concentration. Yeah, then they become a bit like Brahma. Yeah, so they become that state of being. Then next would be birth. So once you become the character, that character is subject to change. We'll go through birth, aging, sickness and death. So whatever state of mind you're clinging to won't stay on forever. They're subject to change. Birth, aging, sickness and death. So that's I would say the moment to moment explanation if you fit in the sixth sense based consciousness to this formula. Yeah, but if you were to replace the sixth sense based consciousness to rebirth linking consciousness, then it will kind of change the entire context, the entire explanation. Okay, next. Alright, okay, so this is the definition of the consciousness. Okay, from the origination of fabrication, so this is talking about the second noble truth format. So before, consciousness would be fabrication, mental fabrication or karmic formations, mental formations or karmic formations. So that's the second link of the dependent origination. Comes the origination of consciousness. From the cessation of fabrication comes the cessation of consciousness. So if you clear the previous link, then you clear the consciousness. And the way of practice leading to the cessation of consciousness is just this very noble eightfold path: right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So that's the fourth noble truth. So the third noble truth is the cessation of consciousness. So like mentioned in the previous class, cessations doesn't mean stopping. It doesn't mean the enlightened being cannot see, cannot hear, cannot smell, cannot think, cannot touch. No, they still operate normally. Cessation means overcoming the craving. Yeah, letting go of craving. So you can find the definition in the turning the wheel of the Dhamma, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So the definition of the third noble truth is the abandoning of craving. So that's the meaning of cessation. Cessation doesn't mean you cut off your organs and you stop seeing, stop hearing. No. Okay, next. Okay, now when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns consciousness, the origination of consciousness, the cessation of consciousness, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of consciousness in this way, when having entirely abandoned passion obsession, having abolished aversion obsession, having uprooted the view and conceit obsession. So these are the, I would say, the three different craving, greed, hatred, delusion. I am, view and conceit obsession, I am. Having abandoned ignorance and given rise to clear knowing, he has put an end to suffering and stress right in the here and now. It is to this extent, too, that a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view, who has arrived at this true Dhamma. So again, this paragraph is repeated over and over again, is to emphasize whenever Sariputta is talking about the Arahant level kind of right view. You totally overcome passion, overcome aversion, overcome the ego. So that's the Arahant's level, when they overcome all this defilement. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we move on up the ladder. So what it means is that regardless of which 12 links you're contemplating, you still need to apply the Noble Eightfold Path. You don't have to figure out which part of the 12 links you cut off, because if you practice the Noble Eightfold Path, you're actually reducing craving. You're going against the stream of craving, which is against the whole 12 links. So any of the 12 links you just take and contemplate and apply the Noble Eightfold Path, generate right thought, then that's good enough. So you don't have to fully understand what I'm trying to explain previously with the 12 links, the whole process. If it's too confusing for you, doesn't matter. You just take any of the two. Like the most obvious one was the first time when we talk about aging and death. So that's very obvious. Aging and death. We just contemplate birth, aging, sickness, death. The hairs growing, falling, the skin growing and falling, and then you kind of apply this right effort, right mindfulness, everything. Then that would be sufficient. That would be sufficient, because when you're paying attention to these parts of the 32 parts of the body, or the impurities of the body, you require consciousness. You need to pay attention. You're visualizing the image, mind or consciousness. There's contact, there's feeling, and there's no certain craving, whether you like or don't like the parts of the body. There's clinging. So you need to apply the right thought to overcome craving. So it's the same. Doesn't matter which link you are using, or doesn't matter what meditation object you're using. It's still applying the Noble Eightfold Path if you want to overcome this suffering. Okay, so I'll just read through. Saying, good friend, having delighted in and approved of Venerable Sariputta's words, the monks asked him a further question. Would there be another line of reasoning by which a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view, who has arrived at this true Dhamma? So even though Venerable Sariputta has given many solutions to the problem, still not enough, then okay, they still want more examples. Take it next. So fabrication or mental formation. There would, when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns fabrication, so that's the first noble truth, the origination of fabrication, the second noble truth, the cessation of fabrication, the third noble truth, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of fabrication, the fourth noble truth, then he is a person of right view, who has arrived at this true Dhamma. And what is fabrication? What is the origination of fabrication? What is the cessation of fabrication? What is the way of practice leading to the cessation of fabrication? So now they are trying to define what is this fabrication. Next. Okay, there are these three fabrications: bodily fabrication, verbal fabrication, mental fabrication. These are called fabrication. So this some people translate as karma, bodily karma, verbal karma, mental karma. So in the meditation routine that we do, when we reflect on equanimity, we observe how these karma, old karmas appear. So all these are actually fabrications, mental formations. From the origination of ignorance comes the origination of fabrication. So this is the second noble truth format. So before mental formation or before fabrication, there's ignorance. So ignorance is the first link, right at the source of the 12 links. From the cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of fabrication. And the way of practice leading to the cessation of fabrication is just this very noble eightfold path. Right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So again, this same format, you just need to practice the 8, and then you clear craving and eventually clear ignorance. So only an arahant can overcome ignorance. Okay, next. Now, when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns fabrication, the origination of fabrication, the cessation of fabrication, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of fabrication in this way, when having entirely abandoned passion obsession, having abolished aversion obsession, having uprooted the view and conceit obsession I am, having abandoned ignorance and given rise to clear knowing, he has put an end to suffering and stress right in the here and now. It is to this extent too that a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dhamma. So the same repeating paragraph, stock formula. Okay, next. Alright, so we are finishing this sutta. So the first one is ignorance. Saying, good friend, having delighted in and approved all Venerable Sariputta's words, the monks asked him a further question. Would there be another line of reasoning by which a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dhamma? So we covered everything already. So now is the last one, ignorance. Next. There would, when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns ignorance, the first noble truth, the origination of ignorance, the second noble truth, the cessation of ignorance, the third noble truth, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of ignorance, the fourth noble truth, then he is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dhamma. And what is ignorance? What is the origination of ignorance? What is the cessation of ignorance? What is the way of practice leading to the cessation of ignorance? Okay, next. Alright, okay, so you have the definition of ignorance. Any lack of knowledge with reference to stress. So this is Ajahn Thanisaro's translation of dukkha. So some people translate as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Any lack of knowledge with reference to the origination of stress. Any lack of knowledge with reference to the cessation of stress. Any lack of knowledge with reference to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress. This is called ignorance. So basically, ignorance means not fully comprehending the Four Noble Truths. So even though we are repeating Four Noble Truths so many times, no, that doesn't mean a person fully understand the Four Noble Truths. Only enlightened being can fully understand the Four Noble Truths, because this requires cessation. That means full relinquishment of craving. So only an enlightened being can fully relinquish craving. Then they can fully understand and experience the Four Noble Truths. Okay, from the origination of fermentation comes the origination of ignorance. So actually, before ignorance, there's something else. You have this term called fermentation. So if I'm not wrong, the Pali term for this is asavas, fermentation. So it's my personal opinion would be like a kind of mental energy that feed craving. So it requires some sensitivity. When you see something, hear something, smell something, the attention or the consciousness, mental energy that kind of run around, that energy or that pressure that causes this mind to move is called this fermentation, asava. Okay, from the cessation of fermentation comes the cessation of ignorance. And the way of practice leading to the cessation of ignorance is just this very noble eightfold path. Right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Right, so it's a total lifestyle package. It's not just come here for the meditation class, then you sit here and that's it. No, you need the right livelihood. That means you're even at work, what you do at home, your behavior, your speech. Earlier on we talked about fabrication, this verbal fabrication, right? So if you want to overcome the negative fabrication, you need right speech. And same thing, bodily fabrication, you need right action, all your behaviors. So if a person commits stealing and killing and so on, that's creating negative bodily fabrication. Right, so you need all these lifestyle package to overcome craving. Okay, next. Now, when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns ignorance, the origination of ignorance, the cessation of ignorance, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of ignorance in this way, when having entirely abandoned passion obsession, having abolished aversion obsession, having uprooted the view and conceit obsession I am, having abandoned ignorance and given rise to clear knowing, he has put an end to suffering and stress right in the here and now. It is to this extent, too, that the disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dhamma. Okay, next slide. Saying, good friend, having delighted in and approved of Venerable Sariputta's words, the monks asked him a further question. Would there be another line of reasoning by which a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dhamma? So we go beyond the 12 links, tackling the source. So actually fermentation would be very close to like craving and defilement. Next. There would, when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns mental fermentation, the origination of fermentation, the cessation of fermentation, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of fermentation, then he is a person of right view who has arrived at this true Dhamma. Okay, so now he's trying to define what is fermentation. And what is fermentation? What is the origination of fermentation? What is the cessation of fermentation? What is the way of practice leading to the cessation of fermentation? Okay, next slide. There are these three fermentations. The fermentation of sensuality. Yeah, that means your material senses, your enjoyment of your sights, now the hearing, the smells, taste and touch and all those, sensuality. The fermentation of becoming. The fermentation of ignorance. This is called fermentation. Yeah, so the Ajahn Jeff used fermentation is like fermenting food, like beverage, like alcohol and certain items where you can fermentate. It's a bit like you need certain condition for the thing to fermentate. You need to keep it and close it in a jar or something to fermentate. So in order for fermentation to arise, you need certain conducive environment. That means there is a defilement or wrong view to like sensuality. You think sensuality can bring you happiness, or you think that becoming, entering deep concentration will bring you ultimate happiness. Yeah, so this is part of wrong view, ignorance, fermentation, all these three things. Okay, from the origination of ignorance comes the origination of fermentation. So again, beyond fermentation is ignorance. So you come back to square one. Yeah, so ignorance covers fermentation also. From the cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of fermentation. And the way of practice leading to the cessation of fermentation is just this very noble eightfold path. Right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So the same formula. So if you cannot figure out what's the relationship between fermentation and ignorance, doesn't matter. You just practice the noble eightfold path. Okay, next slide. Okay, now when a disciple of the Noble Ones discerns fermentation, the origination of fermentation, the cessation of fermentation, and the way of practice leading to the cessation of fermentation in this way, when having entirely abandoned passion obsession, having abolished aversion obsession, having uprooted the view and conceit obsession I am, having abandoned ignorance and given rise to clear knowing, he has put an end to suffering and stress right in the here and now. It is to this extent, too, that a disciple of the Noble Ones is a person of right view, one whose view is made straight, who is endowed with verified confidence in the Dhamma, and who has arrived at this true Dhamma. That is what Venerable Sariputta said, gratified the monks delighted in Venerable Sariputta's words. Okay, so we concluded the sutta, the end. So we open the floor to Q&A. Any questions?